The observer's warning. Commander Nikolai Volkov stared at the anomaly blinking on his monitor screen, a single red dot where no dot should be. Outside the reinforced viewport of Sentinel Station Omega-7, the stars remained unchanging pinpricks of light against the void. Nothing visibly amiss, but the sensors didn't lie. "Run diagnostic sequence," Nikolai ordered, his gruff voice cutting through the quiet hum of the monitoring station. "And get me visual confirmation." Lieutenant JHA nodded silently, her four-fingered hands dancing across the holographic interface with practiced precision. The Sentinel Station was one of dozens positioned along the border of what the Galactic Concordat called the Silent Expanse, a region of space declared off-limits by decree of the High Council over 8 centuries ago. "Diagnostic complete," JHA reported, "all systems functioning within normal parameters." Her large, amber eyes narrowed. "The anomaly is real, Commander." The main screen flickered and zoomed in on a section of seemingly empty space. For a moment, nothing appeared. Then, as the computer enhanced the image, a silhouette emerged, sleek, elongated, and unlike any ship design currently in service within the Concordat's vast fleet. "Magnify," Nikolai whispered, leaning forward. The image sharpened. The vessel was obsidian black, its surface seeming to absorb rather than reflect the distant starlight. No visible weapons, no conventional engine ports, just smooth, uninterrupted lines that spoke of technology far beyond current Concordat specifications. "It's not broadcasting any recognition codes," Lieutenant JHA said, voice tense. "No energy signatures we can identify. If not for its movement against the star field, I'd say it was just debris." Nikolai's weathered face hardened. "Send the standard hailing sequence on all Concordat frequencies, then notify High Command." As JHA carried out his orders, Nikolai couldn't shake the feeling of dread crawling up his spine. In 15 years of border patrol, he'd never encountered an unknown ship in the Silent Expanse. No one had. The region had remained undisturbed, forgotten by most citizens of the Concordat's 1,000 worlds. "No response to hails, Commander," JHA reported. "The vessel is maintaining position at the edge of the expanse. It's just waiting." High Command acknowledges they're convening an emergency session of the Council. She paused, tilting her head as she listened to her earpiece. "They're requesting continuous updates and ordering us to maintain distance." Within hours, the news of the mysterious vessel had spread through the highest echelons of the Concordat's leadership. The High Council chamber on Nexus Prime, filled with representatives from the 7 founding species and observers from allied worlds. High Chancellor Dramara, her scaled skin gleaming under the chamber's lights, called the session to order. "The security of our borders has been breached," she announced, her translator converting her sibilant native tongue into standard galactic common. "An unidentified vessel has entered the Silent Expanse." A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. The Silent Expanse was more than just restricted space. It was taboo, an area that had been systematically removed from star charts, educational materials, and cultural memory. "Do we have any indication of origin or intent?" asked Councillor Krav, the massive Urshan representative whose species had evolved in triple gravity. High Chancellor Dramara shook her head. "None. The vessel does not match any known design in our databases." "Then we must assume hostile intent," Krav rumbled. "I recommend immediate military response. Destroy it before it can pose a greater threat." "With respect, Counselor," interjected a soft voice from the lower tiers of the chamber, "such action may be premature and potentially catastrophic." All eyes turned to the small figure who had spoken, Archivist Thenra Loom, barely reaching the waist height of most delegates. Her species, the Visk, were known for their prodigious memories and served as the Concordat's primary record keepers. "The Archivist will be recognized," Chancellor Dramara said, surprise evident in her tone. Archivists rarely participated in security discussions. Thenra stepped forward, her large, luminous eyes blinking slowly. "I have accessed the sealed historical archives regarding the Silent Expanse. The region was not always forbidden. 843 standard years ago, it was known as the Terran Sphere." The chamber fell silent. "Terran," Chancellor Dramara repeated, the word unfamiliar on her tongue. "Human," Thenra clarified, "a species that once held considerable influence in that sector of space." Councillor Krav leaned forward. "Humans are mythological creatures, Archivist, stories to frighten younglings." "No," Thenra said firmly, "they were quite real, and if my analysis of the vessel's design is correct, this ship is of human origin. The chamber erupted in voices. Chancellor Dramara pounded her ceremonial staff for order. Explain yourself, Archivist. How could a species from legend suddenly appear in our space? Because they were never legend, Thenra replied. They were systematically erased from our history. I found evidence of a massive historical purge ordered by the previous council administration. References removed, records altered, entire star systems renamed. She activated her personal projector, displaying ancient schematics that bore a striking resemblance to the vessel now hovering at the edge of the silent expanse. Humans were technologically advanced, philosophically unconventional, and deemed problematic by the Concordat leadership of that era. Rather than risk open conflict, the council of that time enacted the Silence Protocol, a complete isolation and information purge. But why? Asked a representative from the outer colonies. Because humans questioned too much, Thenra said simply. They advanced too quickly, pushed boundaries the Concordat had established as immutable. They were unpredictable, and that made them dangerous. Back at Sentinel Station Omega-7, Commander Nikolai watched the mysterious vessel with growing unease. The High Council's debate continued in encrypted transmissions, but no consensus had been reached. Meanwhile, the ship maintained its position, silent and immobile. Energy spike, Lieutenant JHA suddenly called out. The vessel is activating something. Nikolai tensed, expecting weapons. Instead, the dark ship began to emit a signal, not directed at the station, but broadcasting widely across all frequencies. What is it saying? He demanded. JHA shook her head in confusion. It's not using any known communication protocol. I think it's raw data, massive amounts of it. On Nexus Prime, in the heart of the council chamber, every communication device simultaneously activated. Screens large and small flickered to life as the signal reached the capital world. The faces of the assembled delegates reflected the blue glow of unexpected data streams. Archivist Thenra's eyes widened as she scanned the incoming information. These are historical records, she whispered, unaltered accounts of human civilization, star charts, scientific discoveries, cultural artifacts. She looked up at the council, her face pale. They're returning our memory to us. Chancellor Dramara rose from her seat, her composing slipping. Shut it down, block the transmission. We cannot, replied the head of communications. The signal is bypassing all our security protocols. It's as if our systems were designed to accept it. In that moment, a new signal cut through the data stream. A single message in perfect galactic common, delivered in a calm, measured voice. To the Galactic Concordat, we have observed your growth for 8 centuries from the shadows you placed us in. The silence ends today. Prepare to receive our emissary. The message repeated once, then fell silent. The data stream continued unabated, pouring centuries of forgotten history into the Concordat's networks. On the command deck of Sentinel Station Omega-7, Commander Nikolai watched as a small shuttle detached from the mysterious vessel and began moving toward them. No weapons locked on, no aggressive maneuvers. Just a direct, purposeful approach. Orders, sir? Lieutenant JHA asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nikolai straightened his uniform, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon him. Open the docking bay, he said, and alert the High Council. The humans have returned. Echoes of memory. The shuttle docked at Sentinel Station Omega-7 with precision that belied its alien origin. Commander Nikolai Volkov stood in the receiving bay, surrounded by his security team. Their weapons weren't drawn, a gesture of tentative peace, but the atmosphere remained tense, crackling with anticipation. The shuttle's door slid open silently, revealing a figure that stepped forward with fluid grace. The station's lights illuminated a tall humanoid form dressed in a simple gray uniform without insignia or adornment. His face appeared strikingly ordinary: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, yet there was something in his gaze that marked him as different, a depth of awareness that made Nikolai's skin prickle. I am Emissary Kaito, the figure announced, his voice carrying easily through the cavernous docking bay. Representative of the Terran Collective, I come in peace, though I understand that concept may seem unfamiliar between our peoples. Nikolai stepped forward, maintaining protocol despite his racing heart. Commander Nikolai Volkov, Sentinel Station Omega-7, Galactic Concordat, you have entered restricted space without authorization. A slight smile touched Kaito's lips. restricted, an interesting designation for what was once our home. Within hours, the human emissary was connected via secure transmission to the High Council on Nexus Prime. The council chamber had descended into barely controlled chaos as the data stream from the human vessel continued to infiltrate Concordat systems, revealing centuries of meticulously buried truths. Your presence violates ancient treaties, Chancellor Dramara declared, her scaled fingers gripping the edges of her ceremonial podium. The boundaries of the silent expanse were established and agreed upon. Emissary Kaido's image remained serene on the massive communication screen. Agreed upon, is that what you believe, Chancellor? His tone was not accusatory, merely questioning. The historical records we've reintroduced to your networks tell a different story. Archivist Thenra stepped forward, her small form commanding attention. He speaks the truth, Chancellor. I've verified the data against our most deeply sealed archives. The Treaty of Silence was not an agreement but an ultimatum, delivered after the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The chamber fell silent as holographic images appeared, reconstructing events long purged from official records. They showed massive Concordat warships surrounding a blue-green planet Earth. They showed devastation on colony worlds, orbital platforms destroyed, and finally, human representatives signing documents under obvious duress. 843 years ago, Kaido continued, humanity was given a choice that was no choice at all: retreat behind artificial borders and accept historical erasure or face total extinction. Our ancestors chose survival. If this is true, growled Councillor Krav, then why return now? Why break the silence after so many centuries? Kaido's gaze seemed to penetrate the screen. Because the terms of our isolation included monitoring rights, we've watched the Concordat evolve. We've observed how you've treated other emerging species, how you've controlled technological development, how you've maintained order through selective memory and restricted knowledge. He paused. And we've seen the darkness growing at your borders. Across the galaxy, strange occurrences were being reported. On the mining colony of Viridian IX, ancient machinery hidden beneath the planet's surface had suddenly activated. On the academic world of Thelos Prime, sealed vaults in forgotten archives were opening themselves, revealing collections of artifacts and texts previously unknown to exist. In her laboratory on the research station circling Nexus Prime, geneticist Myra Voss stared at her screens in disbelief. For years, she had studied the peculiar genetic similarities between several seemingly unrelated Concordat species. Her research had repeatedly hit administrative barriers, her funding threatened, her access restricted. Now, with the human data stream flooding through even the most secure networks, pieces were falling into place. Her trembling hands brought up comparative DNA strands, human genetic markers obvious in half a dozen younger species spread across Concordat space. They seeded worlds, she whispered to her empty lab. The humans didn't just retreat, they scattered their legacy throughout the stars. On Sentinel Station Omega-7, Commander Nikolai found himself walking alongside Emissary Kaido, showing him the facility in a surreal tour that felt both diplomatic and dangerous. Your people have maintained these border stations for centuries, Kaido observed. Always watching, always waiting, did you never question why? Nikolai's brow furrowed. It was a security directive. The silent expanse was off-limits, potential hazards, unstable space phenomena. Convenient explanations, Kaido replied. But tell me, Commander, in all your years of service, have you ever detected these supposed hazards, recorded these phenomena? The question struck Nikolai like a physical blow. He had never questioned the purpose of his assignment, had never wondered why massive resources were dedicated to monitoring empty space. We were never watching for dangers coming out, Kaido said softly. Your leaders were watching for us deciding to come back in. On Nexus Prime, the High Council's session had devolved into factions. Some demanded immediate military response against the human vessel. Others, influenced by the revelations still pouring through the networks, called for diplomatic engagement. A small but growing contingent proposed a full investigation into the historical purge that had removed humanity from galactic memory. Chancellor Dramara struggled to maintain order. The vessel remains isolated, one shuttle, one emissary, we still hold the advantage. Do we? Archivist Thenra questioned. Reports are coming in from across Concordat space. Dormant technologies awakening, hidden archives opening, communication networks operating outside our control. The humans didn't just hide behind borders, Chancellor. They've been among us all along, waiting. A junior aide rushed into the chamber, forgetting protocol in her haste. Chancellor, urgent news. The Nexari Alliance has initiated contact with the human vessel. They're establishing independent diplomatic relations. The Nexari, a coalition of younger species from the outer systems, had long chafed under Concordat regulations that limited their technological advancement and expansion. Now they were breaking ranks, reaching directly toward the mysterious humans who had returned from myth. "This cannot stand," Counselor Krav roared. "It threatens everything we've built." "Does it?" came a new voice. The chamber turned as geneticist Myra Voss entered, her research credentials projected before her. "Or does it merely threaten the control you've maintained through selective truth?" She activated her own display, showing genetic analyses that stunned the assembly. The Nexari species show human genetic influences. They are in essence partly human descendants, bioengineered colonists left behind when humanity retreated. No wonder they're responding to the signal. Their very DNA recognizes it. On the command deck of Sentinel Station Omega-7, Commander Nikolai received the cascade of reports with growing unease. Fleet movements, diplomatic crises, revelations of technologies that had been systematically suppressed. The Concordat was fracturing along lines that had existed beneath the surface for centuries. "Your return has triggered chaos," he said to Emissary Kaido, who stood calmly observing the stars. "Not chaos, Commander, clarity." Kaito turned from the viewport. "Humanity didn't come back to conquer or to exact revenge for ancient wrongs. We returned because of what's coming." "What do you mean?" 8 centuries ago, deep space explorers encountered something beyond the rim, a force that consumed everything in its path. The Concordat dismissed our warnings, called them fabrications designed to justify our rapid militarization and expansion. Kaido's eyes reflected starlight. "So we retreated, building our defenses in secret, preparing not just ourselves but seeding the galaxy with fail-safes, hidden technologies, genetic legacies that would awaken when needed." A chill ran through Nikolai, and now they're needed. "Our long-range sensors detected the first incursions 3 months ago. The expanse was never meant to contain us, Commander. It was meant to give us space to build the defenses all life in this galaxy will soon depend upon." Across Concordat space, ancient human outposts were fully awakening, not as weapons of war against the civilizations that had exiled them, but as defensive systems oriented toward the galactic rim. Dormant shipyards began producing vessels unlike any the Concordat had seen. Planetary shields, thought to be theoretical, shimmered into existence around vulnerable worlds. In the High Council chamber, the fractured leadership of the Concordat faced a choice unlike any in their history. The lies of centuries lay exposed. The carefully maintained order was crumbling. And beyond their borders, both the returned humans and the newly awakened Nexari were preparing for something the Concordat had refused to acknowledge. Chancellor Dramara, her authority waning by the hour, faced Archivist Thenra and geneticist Myra. "What would you have us do? Surrender 8 centuries of stability because of unverified claims?" "Not surrender," Thenra replied. "Evolve. The humans aren't calling for your removal or for retribution. They're calling for alliance against a common threat." Myra nodded. The genetic legacy they left behind, it wasn't random. It created species with complementary abilities, diverse perspectives. They were designing a galactic community able to face something they'd already encountered. In the silence that followed, a message arrived from Commander Nikolai Volkov, transmitted simultaneously to every world in Concordat space. It showed real-time sensor data from beyond the silent expanse, a darkness moving between the stars, a void that consumed light itself. "The humans call it the Devourer," Nikolai's voice narrated over the chilling images. "They've been preparing defenses for 8 centuries while we watch their empty borders. Now they offer those defenses to us all." Standing beside him on the broadcast, Emissary Kaito spoke with calm certainty. "The time for silence is over. The time for division is past. Humanity extends its hand in alliance, not out of forgiveness for ancient wrongs, but out of commitment to a future for all life in this galaxy." Across thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched as history was rewritten in real time. The mysterious human ship that had appeared without warning had delivered more than just lost memories. It had brought a new beginning, forged in the shadow of an approaching darkness. A galaxy that had held its breath in fear now breathed again with purpose.